Hey, Warren.
Hey, Jace.
Hey, you've been a busy man today.
I know, I've just been speaking to property investors and pole dancing, whatever else I got up to.
Ah, is that a surprise, anyone? No, it's not. Well, welcome. I'm so energized to be here today. It's been a little bit since I've been back on some of these calls. Guys, I thought I got fired, but it turns out I'm not fired. I'm back in on the Wednesday calls. Hey, Warren, it's all good.
Oh, we're
So,
going to fire you, Jace, but I don't know. We kind
yeah,
of
but
didn't.
shortages, staff shortages these days, people, it's a tough gig out there.
I know.
Anyways, well, thanks for coming, everybody. Today we're talking about the Great Reset. We just jumped off a webinar with HB. It was really brilliant, talking about our emotions, anxiety, and depression, and some practical things. But let's talk about the Great Reset. Now, do you have some slides and things to go through today, Warren?
No, not slides so much. Just going to talk about it, and then I'll show different diagrams and share screens from time to time.
Awesome. Okay. Well, first and foremost, I think that is something we've been talking about for quite some time. Hey, Warren, about the Great Reset, and it's probably something that everyone's kind of heard. Klaus Schwab and his book, there's a book called The Great Reset. You know, it's something that's been thrown around. So we're getting back to it right now because once again, it's something that people are thinking about. So what's your take on the Great Reset? And especially based on from about a year ago when we started talking about it, what's changed, if anything?
Look, it's been heading for a while, but it'd be like, if you read Porter Stainsbury's book about Jubilee, which is, I remember reading it in 2018. He talked about 2020 onwards, the beginning of the Great Jubilee. Now, to understand the Jubilee, back in history, every 50 years, they'd flush the economy out in the Hebrew world, where they kind of flush it and start it again, like clean out debts and everything else. So generally what happens in societies like and economies of large groups of people is that people start moving money, they create their own money system, they start lending money to each other. But every now and again, the economy starts to get bloated, debts get increased, people start to get indebted to each other. So kind of once every 50 years, they let there be a big reset to kind of flush it out and give things a fresh start. And even since that Hebrew time, that every 90 years on average, there was generally some kind of reset. And the reason, especially it's relevant right now, you've got to actually understand our economic system, Jasmine, and how it actually works. Like, let's just say that we were working in a world where we all had gold coins. It was real gold. Gold has this thing called intrinsic value, which means it actually is worth something. Now, if I give you a $50 note, that's not actually worth anything other than toilet paper, unless people actually believe it's worth something. So that's the difference. So it's really important first economically to understand the difference between intrinsic value and actually what's called paper value. So if you've got an intrinsic value society, generally it's a bit more stable as a rule, because generally what's happening is that, let's say that I pay you one gold coin worth $1,000 for something you do for me, you're getting real intrinsic value with something that's tangible and worth something. But then let's say that I give you this $50 note. The system works provided people believe in it. Now, that can work okay, but just imagine you throw in another complicating factor. So number one, you've got a paper that's not worth anything, but except for what you believe it to be worth. But now someone's given the power to actually print more of his money as much as they like. So you've got this group called the bank or the Federal Reserve Bank or whatever else we call them that can just print more money. So let's just say hypothetically in Australia, we've got $1 trillion. And then this group called the bank prints a further $1 trillion and just pumps it into the economy. You suddenly double the money supply floating around. So what has it now suddenly done to everyone else's dollar? You've effectively cut it in half. Exactly. So you can kind of get away with that for a certain time, but eventually people start to realize it's a problem and they start kind of increasing their prices. And I've been saying for a while that we'd enter a point where prices would start to go up. And you just have to go back to 1923 Germany, Argentina 1978, Zimbabwe 1980s. And you see economies where eventually the prices just start going zoom, 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 zoom. Eventually the government or someone has to step in and say, okay, out of control. Money's not worth anything anymore. People are doing this. People are racked up with debt. People are losing hope. And right now, the average person can't buy a home. They're racked up with student debts, no future. So at some stage, the government goes, okay, we're going to have to come, wipe this whole thing out, We're going to have to kind of stop this hyperinflation and prices going up. Let's just set a new standard and start again. Let's just get rid of all of the old kind of, haves and have-nots. Let's just get rid of all this kind of like debts that are going on for student loans and mortgages, and the masses go, yay. But then for those who've kind of enriched themselves on the system, they're caught out really, really badly. So the Great Reset is what I call a marketing brand name for kind of preparation for what I see as a real problem. And the issue so much is not so much a reset, because personally, I think we need one. The issue is who's doing the reset. Now, if really responsible, ethical, honorable, God-fearing people were doing this reset, they would be doing it in a way which kind of protects different rights to different people and all that kind of stuff. The issue that everyone's fearing here is they don't trust the people behind it. And with good reason, after seeing the people behind it pretty much using their power to almost coerce people into getting needles, which is fairly obviously problematic, and which there's even evidence it's worse than problematic with what the plans are behind it. So the trust is very, very low right now. And a reset is inevitable, but the issue is going to be the reset's going to favor certain people, and people don't like it when a system basically favors the rich or favors certain people and not favors others. So is it a potential problem? Yeah, look, I think we're heading for a very major financially situation, no question about it.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone's feeling a bit tense with what that's going to look like, right? And no one really.
Reason.
Yeah, with good reason, exactly.
It's very sobering. I mean, like, I've always seen there's going to be some kind of reset. The thing that worries me, or just not worries me is not the right word, that I'm very mindful of, is every year when they keep keeping this kind of economy on life support, which housing prices are out of control, people are living out of cars, social problems happening, all they're doing is prolonging the inevitable. And when the inevitable happens, I just can't, it's hard to really imagine what it can be like, but I can get some kind of idea. So I'm very mindful about myself. That's why I've been very careful about money, protecting wealth, setting up in the right structures, having diversified portfolio, and even having what I call really big backup plans for this kind of stuff, not from a point of where I'm living in fear, but just simply from the place that when money breaks down and people can't live anymore and people can't feed their families, I mean, that can definitely cause some kind of civil unrest. There's always a risk of it happening in certain parts and things like that. And it's very important to be, protecting yourself and kind of being very aware of what I think will survive the reset, or at least what's likely to survive, the kind of businesses, the kind of income streams, that kind of stuff. So it's really what the Great Reset will do is get people back to grassroots, what I call economic realities. Because really people are living in an artificial economic reality right now. Like, I want money, great, print it out. Let's just print this out. I will print this out. We'll give you this. And all of us to some degree are victims of that. All of us, even those who think we're not. Like we get this grant, we get given this thing, and we start to get used to it. Like, I have people I have friends who are going on about electric cars as control mechanisms, and you can't have intelligent conversations with them, because all I want to say to them is, well, do you guys use synergy electricity? If you do, you're part of a centralized control network already. So the problem is not some kind of centralized network, it's misuse of it. So, and the fear that people are having is misuse of it. And we're certainly seeing from the last few years that misuse is a real risk right now. So it's getting your structure set up and having what's called independent operated ways, to function. Because I do think we're heading for some, look, I can feel stuff is pending, and I think that this is only a temporary pause in what's coming next. And I think
energetically, everyone can feel that, and that's the conversation. Everyone's looking, okay, how do I create passive income? How do I get out of the system? How do I escape the Great Reset, right? Like, what do I do? Okay, so let's talk about the housing situation. Olivia yesterday posted, the property manager posted online, there's 846,000 visas on hold at the moment, which the Australian government has said that they are going to fast track through. So we've got 847,000 people about to enter into Australia with a market that's already really struggling.
Are you serious?
Yeah, dead set serious. So
like immigration. So why are we going down this track? Is this to make it more problematic for people so we can then set up more of a financial situation that the government come and step in again? Is this what the next step could be? Well, yeah, look, I think that if you actually look at what Sweden and places like that and, you know, like countries like that have been doing,
Yeah.
yeah, look, if you actually look at what Sweden and countries and all that stuff have done, they brought in refugees. And look, I don't like to kind of denigrate groups, but I know one of the problems in many of these countries is that it's caused major housing crisis. And many refugees from countries who are coming don't have the same values as by and large people in there. And so, like, I know there's been a great increase in rape cases. And a lot of them are refugees from countries who see women's rights very differently to what we see them here. Like, you know, the Western world, for example, we do value women's rights overall. I think sometimes a bit over the top, but I'm glad women here get well valued. But some countries, they really don't. And yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I just tell. I always shut people up in this argument because my mum was having an argument with me. And I said to her, I'll ask you one question, Mum. I said, would you let somebody who's come from an abusive home come and live in our house when you had a young daughter who was 13? She goes, no. I said, why? And she said, because of the risk. I said, not because you're not being compassionate, but you want to protect your own. So I said, we've got to protect our own in our country of Australia. First and foremost, I said, we should be very strict on who comes into Australia, very strict on all kinds of vetting processes and everything, you know. We've got to protect our way of life, protect our culture. That's one thing I really agree with Pauline Hanson on. You know, I think she tries hard overall to protect Australia's way of life. And, you know, I think to some degree we've been too extreme on colonialism and a few other things for sure. I think that we need improvement in that way. But yeah, look, the last thing we need to be doing is having a housing crisis and then fighting in immigration without an obvious solution to solve that, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, even then lending criteria to get a mortgage, to buy a house, is getting tougher. So if there's no rental market and then all the caravans are full, where are people going to go? It's really getting bad.
Look, there's a very good question from Sandra here. She asked about the current rapid increases in mortgage rates from theft of money from the people. Well, look, the issue is, Sandra, if you go back to the Great Depression in the 1920s, interest rates went shooting up, you know, like absolutely shooting up. And that was what precipitated the Great Depression, you know. And so, yeah, look, I've always predicted the time would come when they would do this. And I don't know if I'll slow down or whatever. But yeah, this is definitely going to create a lot of bankruptcies and people who just can't pay for their mortgages. Because the problem is rates got down to record lows and then people were using that to buy up properties way beyond their means and way beyond their cushion, because we're living in the greed and the sickness of materialism. Like, materialism is a sickness, it really is. And I'm all for nice things. You know, I live in a nice place. But right now but I've also, what people don't know about me, I've lived in absolutely simple stuff. I lived in a house when I first got married for a year, which had no air conditioner in the middle of summer for the whole year. When my business got into trouble many, many years ago, and I was very sick with health and couldn't work, I lived in my mother-in-law's house in one of the spare rooms that Grace and I were living, sharing it with the twins who were newborn, with William sharing the room with her mum's housemate, and didn't have air conditioner or anything. And it was all through summer and everything, you know. So I've lived in both things and I was quite comfortable. I didn't have the money to probably live like that. I cut my expenses down and lived simply. Whereas as soon as I had abundant money come in, I improved my lifestyle, you know. And I think in Australia, one of the problems we've got is people have lost that ability to live within their means. And that's one of the reasons that's fast tracking this great reset and this mortgage. Like, people go, oh, I want to get a bigger house. So, oh, no, I've got to live in this thing, a good school for my kids. Oh, yeah, well, look, interest rates are really low. Let's just go and buy one. And not really thinking it through. Like, if interest rates go up by 3%, because the mortgage brokers go, oh, no, we'll never do that. And of course it is doing it. So, you know, if you know history, you know that this happens regularly. Interest rates, when they go up, they'll really go up. I mean, we could see them go up a lot.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to how you said, you know, obviously people a little bit worried about what's to come, and they've lost trust and faith in, you know, governments and with all the West. With trust actually diminishing in our society, could you share your thoughts on what this does moving forward for us as a country and as a world? Because in a way, it's almost like people have lost trust in themselves to take the right action because they feel overpowered maybe by the other force. Could you talk a little bit on that, Warren?
Look, yeah, if I really spoke how I really feel about a lot of that, I mean, I think our society is in a very sick state. I really do, because when the society has lost trust so much in government that you literally have people getting fake vaccine certificates and fake this and deliberately doing things to get around laws. I mean, law should be respected. It really should be. I mean, we want to have good laws that we respect. Like in our companies, we have company standards that we want to do. And we keep deliberately in Global Wealth Club with staff, we keep our standards light because we don't want to impose excessive rules on staff. But the rules we do impose, we want to be followed. Because if we start imposing stupid rules upon you, like, some companies, oh, you can't do this. You can't date someone in the company. You can't do this. I mean, people eventually start breaking rules. And the problem with Australia now is we're such a nanny state. Like, you can't do this, you can't do that. Daniel Andrews with bushwalking. The biggest thing that happened with the whole COVID thing that made me walk out of COVID knowing we were in real trouble was the fact that people were so quick to coerce and try and not accept each other's point of view and not work together. It was like extraordinary. So when you got a society where that's going on, where dog eat dog, each one for his own and things like that, then yeah, it's not good for the social fabric, people not being able to find houses. So it's really important, in my view, basically make sure your own, like I've really leaned out my own financial situation myself. The best thing you can do, a very wealthy businessman who's got a net worth of hundreds of millions once said to me, in boom times, people get fat and lazy. In recessions, people are forced to lean out. So the best thing you can do right now is start to lean out before it really hits. So spend money on things you need to. Like for me, certain mentoring, like we have really good mentoring and certain business coaches and that, we pay that. But there's a lot of expenses that we just don't need. So we lean them out, getting our finances stable, not buying things that we really don't need, for example. But making sure we still live an abundant life, making sure that your business is sustainable, making sure that your structures are well set up and you're well protected. So it's a good time. There's an old saying of a wise man that the ant basically prepares for winter, as is a squirrel. Like bears go into hibernation, squirrels get their nuts ready for the winter.
Yeah.
This is the time to get ready for the winter right now. So really start building up good savings. And this is why I've got this financial mentoring program that about, the pilot project we're starting the next week or two, where I'm taking a small group of people. We're going to work on giving a 3-month financial mentoring from beginning to end, from basics. That'll include a one-on-one with me, of course, because we want to create a program that from next year onwards, we can run in the club with others doing it. So, of course, if anyone's interested in that, they can just mention it in the chat. And then, our team will take the details. But yeah, we're doing this deliberately, a special pilot to really mentor people in how to, lean down your finances, basically how to build basic financial stability, because right now that is going to be critical for what's ahead, learning to prepare for the winter and have core financial stability.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you think about it, it's all well and good for us to know about this, but now it's about time to do. We've got to take action, right? You can know everything in the world. And this is where I'm generally excited about the financial mentoring program too. So if anyone wants to jump on board with that, I'm more than happy to chat with you, because it is so, so important to take action. Yeah, Nick, I've responded to your email, so we'll be in touch with you, no problems at all. Okay, so we've talked about trust, we've talked about the housing crisis. Let's talk about, in Australia particularly, do you think all of this is leading to the Great Reset, like at a rapid pace? Do you think there's a few years still to go? Talk to me a little bit about timing and what you personally think. Personally,
I don't think the government have got much choice. They're going to have to do something about this at some stage. And look, some people won't like me for saying this. I don't think Albanese is doing about as job as some people say. He actually made a surprisingly intelligent comment the other day when asked why he was stopping the COVID pandemic payments. And he actually said, well, we can't just keep giving government handouts. We've got to teach people the ability to manage their finances and be financially responsible. And I kind of almost fell off my chair. It was actually a really smart statement that he actually made, So look, I just think that where Australia's at right now, we're definitely heading for some kind of thing. Now, keep in mind, in 1933 was the last reset. And on average, every 90 years, statistics show they do a reset of some kind. So generally next year onwards, we're due for one. So I wouldn't be surprised if some stage in the next 2 years we see it. Based on patterning, next year is a very likely year it'll happen, in my view, but definitely the year after. So I don't think we're far away from it. I think that some kind of reset or digital dollar or new economic system, I think is going to be inevitable. And yeah, no, Nadine says, crikey. Yeah, no, I was very surprised, but I've been very
Crikey.
surprised. He's actually made some very intelligent comments lately, Albanese, on this kind of stuff. So
I love it. Goodness, he's funny. Okay, so preparation, practical preparation. What can we do to prepare ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, everything?
The best metaphor I can give to you is think about a bear who knows winter's about to hit and snow's going to hit. It's going to be freezing. And if he's out there, awake, he's going to die. So the bear goes and he gets ready in his cave, sets up his little bunk, goes in there and falls asleep. The squirrel is going out there by natural instinct, going, gets the nuts, puts them together, because they know that once winter hits, you just can't get out and get that. So I think everyone can feel the winter looming. We're in what I call an autumn period now, where things are falling apart a bit now. We're pending before the great storm. So I would be saying right now, definitely leaning out your finances, preparing, definitely getting some kind of mentoring or guidance on your finances if you don't get it. I mean, I cannot say that strongly enough. I mean, we're definitely going to be doing lots of free webinars, because part of the Global Wealth Club, my rule of thumb, is that we want to be giving exceptional free content to people who really, can go away and use it. But then for those who are really keen, we're going to be running our programs and paid mentoring programs and others. And the financial mentoring is a really keen one for me to do, because so many clients have basically been asking about this and saying, well, so we can't give you financial advice, but then at the same time, just teaching people without any mentoring, many people need some help. So the mentoring will be guiding and facilitating people to create a balanced portfolio to get through it. But basically, the main thing that you've got to be able to do, whether it's doing that kind of program or doing something else yourself, it's actually balancing out your portfolio, leaning out your expenses, and getting some financial stability, with some good savings behind you, really managing your finances, getting your budget worked out, reviewing what you're doing with your cash flow sources, whether it's business, whether it's a job. It's very easy in a boom time to be like, go and make passive income, go and do that and all that. And yeah, look, by all means, but keep in mind when recessions hit, like winters and snows hitting, those opportunities are suddenly few and far between. So you want to make sure you've got your core income stability in place. That's my big thing I tell people. So you got to have something that if all else fails, and the one thing I was glad my dad always taught me was to get a skill behind me that if all else fails, I can go back to it. And that all else fails happened to me a couple of times. And I've always been able to go back to my core skill. The fact I got trained in accounting, law, tax minimization, higher strategic stuff, So making sure you got core ways to generate income, but if all else fails, you can go back to it. And making sure that you've got a good nest egg behind you, some cushion, so that if you go through a period where everything's really dry, you've got some cushion behind you financially, things like that. So that's really important, just to get back to financial basics, the stuff that your mum would have taught you, or your financial planner would teach you, getting some basics of your savings, putting aside money for savings, managing your budgets. That's the biggest thing, making sure your structures are in place to protect your assets. And yeah, look, I just personally think people don't do enough with mentoring. They just don't. I still get mentoring, even to this day, as you know. Global Wealth Club is a business mentor, not because we necessarily are in trouble, but because we want to make sure we stay out of trouble and keep growing. All the great sports people have really good mentoring. So whether it's getting some kind of mentoring, or working with people, or working with someone, or making sure that you see a financial planner, if you prefer to go on that route, or whatever it takes to get some core financial stability in your life, get your budgets in place. And if your job's going to be a problem and you realize you're going to have an income possibility in the future, start looking at an alternate way of making income, and start now. It's scary and it's hard, but it's better to do the hard things while it's easy. That's what Sun Tzu said in The Art of War. You want to do the hard things while it's easy. Right now, you can go right now and find alternate sources of income. You can go and develop a new skill of a job. You can get mentoring right now. May not be that way in a year or two. It may be a very different world.
Yeah.
So make hay while the sun shines. This is the time to take action right now, today.
Yeah, that's right. And you don't know what you don't know, right? So, like you said, any coach, any high level coach, or anyone who, is wanting to improve their life, will go and find a coach. I can attest for Warren is constantly getting other sources of information.
All the time.
all the time. And then he shares all the contacts with me, and then I go see all the people. So,
Yeah, you
it's what
copy
we
me.
do. I just copy Warren. We all need growth in our life. Hey, Warren, I just want to bring it back to something that I know you're extremely passionate about. And, we've got the financial world, we've got the Great Reset. But I really want to make a point today. If your health is not in good order, that is your number one priority, and your mindset, because that is something that I know we're going to be mentioning in the mentoring program as well. Because if your health is not good, if your mindset is poor, you're really going to struggle to, number one, be coached and mentored. And number two, you're going to then struggle probably to part ways with money, energy, and time to actually learn. Would you agree with that, Warren? Because I know we've been there before in our own lives.
You mean with your health or whatever?
Yeah, if you're not in good health, right, you don't really feel the energy to learn. If you're not in good mindset and you feel stressed out, you're not going to be able to absorb the information.
No, so in fact, so on that, even like when I mentioned about making hay while the sun shines, before I forget, there's a great poem in Dead Poets Society they named with Robert Herrick called "Gather Your Rosebuds While You May." In other words, get it while you can right now. So with your health, for example, it's a good time right now to get yourself in good health if you can. I know for me, one of the reasons I'm in a good state of mind and happy is I am in good health. And we all joke about the fact I'm now doing pole dancing and being ridiculous, but I am. I'm just having fun and enjoying life, and I'm in the best state right now because I work so hard. I taught myself health. I taught myself basic medicine. I work with doctors. I work with holistic people, and I'm doing exercises and keeping myself fit, keeping the body moving, because we're meant to be moving. We're never ancestrally meant to be sitting all days on the computer, like bent over and hunched over. And from doing that for years, I got really hunched over, and I used to get a lot of shoulder pain at the front here and at the back. And since I've just trained myself to get my shoulders back and, Pilates and pole dancing and other stuff, and got myself really strong with pull-ups and all that kind of stuff, and doing monkey bars, gone back to doing basic stuff. Like I was on the monkey bars today, all stuff just to get myself moving all the time. I don't sit too long on the computer. I then go and do that. The difference it makes, my brain is more creative because I'm doing right brain stuff. So as well as doing health stuff, it's important to develop your right brain. That's why go out in the woods, go out in the forest, go out and enjoy the beach, write a poem, like William, my son's been writing poems lately, write a poem, if you've got a partner that you love, write them a poem, write them a love poem, be creative about it, if you, or join me with pole dancing, Jazz, you and I can do it together, or just basically do some kind or do an art class, do stuff that develops the brain, gets you back in the childlike, because that will help you see creative solutions as well with the reset. That's my other thing I'd say, developing the right brain.
I agree. And we're not going to skip past those important practical steps for you to take, because we're here to, bring truth. Okay, so let's talk now about shortages. There's all this talk about food shortage. There's all this talk about shortage of electricity, energy, fuel, all these things. I mean, what's the best way to prepare here mentally and just prepare?
Look, I'm a big believer that it starts with your mind. It starts with your manifestation mind and what your belief is. Like, you show me someone who's focused on fear, they will eventually get it if you focus long enough. Like, if I keep saying to you, Jazz, don't think of a white elephant. Don't think of a white elephant. No, don't think of a white elephant. Don't think of a white elephant with a frizzy hat over it. And don't think of a white elephant who's just been painted and got someone. I mean, you're thinking of a white elephant. So if you sit there all day thinking about food shortages and about this and about that, I mean, even if they never happen, they've happened in your head and you've already lived that hell,
Exactly.
But the first starting point for me with that was, I just said there may be food shortages elsewhere, but not where I live. I'm never going to have a problem with food. And I've just said that from day one. I don't give that credence, but in saying that, did I look into it? I looked into it carefully, and I thought, well, in WA, I live near farms. I live near this kind of area, all this sort of stuff here. I've trained myself to eat minimal if I need to. But the first starting point is ask where you're living. Is it likely to be a risk? WA, I don't believe as much as other places, because energy, we've got the strongest energy supplies in Australia. And overall here, we're an interesting state because our government seems to be more focused on the people in the system. People who are sovereign and a bit more out of it, they tend to leave alone, not your rat's ass. Whereas if you're in the system in WA, you are definitely an up the ass, for the government. They'll do whatever they want to do to you. So if you're sovereign, if you're in a system and you rely still on a system to make your income, then yeah, you've got to ask, is the place I'm living at going to screw me over, or am I better off to think about options? And some clients are moving overseas to places like Mexico or various other places, or Bali, where you can live or Thailand, where you can live on a lot less money and live a more simple life and be left alone more by government. So that's one option. Or if you're a bit more sovereign economically, you may find in Australia certain places that are okay with. So you've really got to assess this carefully. So,
Yeah.
if you're living in a state where energy is going to be low, like I would not want to be living in parts of Europe right now where blooming there's shortage of energy. They're talking about restricting air conditioning and heat and all that kind of stuff. There's just no way I'd want to be there. I would not want to be right now in Victoria myself. I would not want to live there. I mean, I would have long gone from there with that lunatic running it over there, but you just got to kind of ask where you're living, whether it's best to move to the country. If you can live in the city, are you able to operate independently from it? Is my place at risk of, energy shortages? Can I even find a way to generate my own power off grid? I've got my own, camper trailer with a solar powered system. It's quite advanced at the moment now, which can operate off grid. I've done all that kind of stuff myself. So if I need it.
Yeah, so practical stuff. But I agree. I think that's one of the things, I learned so much is about your mindset. Like I don't even think about food shortages, or I don't worry about it. I think I've thought about it, but yeah, you're right. It's where it's in your mind. Anyway, we've got a few questions here if I don't stop coughing. Leonie said, do you think being a coach is a good business going forward, Warren? What direction?
I think, Leonie, the answer is that simple. I think that people will always want coaches, but the difference is in a recession compared to a boom, only the strong will survive, So in boom times, you can be mediocre and get away with it. Like in the boom in WA, my poor Pilates instructor, the way she's been treated by many of her people, they come through, they just use her for what they can get, go somewhere else. And I told her just today, I said, a lot of these people are going to be found out when the recession happens, because people, let's say you've got a company and you've got 10 people who work for you and you decide you're only going to keep 4. You're going to pick your 4 best. The 6 that are mediocre, but are walking around self-entitled and kind of claiming that they've got a right to play netball and not wear a logo or whatever else they want to do, they'll be out the door quickly, If you've got a business coach that's kind of mediocre, you'll get rid of them. So if you're going to do something, you've really got to get really fucking good at it. That's probably the other best advice I can give people for the Great Reset and for what's ahead is get really good at what you're doing. I don't have any, concerns in that sense, because people will always want my skill, because I know that the few things I'm good at, I'm really good at. There's a lot of things I'm not good at. But the things I am good at, I'm really good at, because I've developed my skill and keep working on it. So just make sure if you're going to be a coach, be a really damn good one. Like, your friend Ryan, he's a really good one. So I'm sure he'll keep getting clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Do what you love as well. Okay. Samantha said, hey, Warren, what are your thoughts on how long the downtime ahead will last? You kind of did mention this before, years or decade.
Yeah, good question. Look, if you look at Martin Armstrong and all the futurists, yeah, a lot of them reckon, and my own little downloads, I do a lot of remote viewing and deep dive downloads. And what that means is if you're actually learning to tap into my unconscious and get answers, and I've been very accurate when I do that, I keep getting a sense that until, next decade, we're going to be having a lot of, turmoil, and at least until the next decade, 2032 seems to be a common year where things seem to improve. And in 2037 seems to be a 30 year of improving from all futurists that I've studied in my own downloads. So I do think the next 10 years is going to be pretty challenging, on and off. There'll be different, like right now, we're in a little bit of a pause. Like things have slightly improved a bit at the moment. They've dropped mandates because they got their backs and that. I got my own theory. I think now we're just starting to want to slowly begin whatever cull or whatever they want to do. I don't know, but I don't trust the whole thing that's going on one little bit. And I'm sure many of you here don't. And I think I think the next round will be, economics. There'll be economic challenges. I think you're going to, some parts of the world, you're going to see an increase in war. I think NATO are very keen to get some wars happening, it seems. So, yeah, it's just interesting. I think we've got plenty of challenges ahead, and we've definitely got to, that's one of the reasons I've chosen to stay in Australia as well, because as I see it, if the war increases, we're the furthest away from everything. And in World War II and World War One, people living in Australia were less affected by other parts of the world. So that's another reason I've also chosen to live here, because I do think there's a real risk of a world war in the near future. And I'm very mindful of that. So that's my other point, because generally to bring in a reset or civilization collapses, wars seem to be a very common way they happen. The only thing that's interesting is you can see from the Russia-Ukraine war, they can't conscript people as easy as they used to, because people don't want to fight like they used to anymore. Like, people are just leaving Russia in droves to avoid being conscripted. So,
and do you think also with that, Warren, so many people just don't trust the news anymore, so they don't even really trust what's going on. So they're like, well, I don't, because to be honest, so many people don't really actually know what's going on over there properly, like to really find true source. It's like everyone's confused, and that's the part of war, isn't it? Confusing everyone, so they don't know what they're fighting about.
Look, we live in a world where there's not a lot of trust, and sometimes I get a little bit down about it, to be honest, because I just cannot believe what I see half the time. Like, even in relationships, you know, the lack of integrity in the way people just bullshit each other as if it's a normal thing now. We have that kind of culture. So again, I think another good way to prepare for it is really clean up your act, you know, clean up your ethics in your own life and the people around you. And, you know, like, people who deserve to be valued in your life, value them. People who are idiots, get rid of them, you know, really, you know, clean up your life in the next little while. That's what I've been doing. I've been really cleaning up my life, like, you know, improving my own personal character. Like, one of the things I decided, you know, as many of you know, my partner died last year, which kind of knocked my world out for a little bit. And, you know, I got on with life and just kind of had fun and did whatever. And then about 2 months ago, I thought, nah, it's time to kind of deal with that, heal my grief, you know, now, let go of that now, and just kind of clean up my life, you know, really clean up my life and get back to basics. And, you know, I started seeing a girl who I've met in Russia. I met her in Thailand. And I remember one of the things I said to her early on, you know, she made a comment to me, and just because the world she comes from in Russia, you know, apparently the men don't always treat the women very well. And she just said, well, you know, men all want multiple women, don't they? And I said, well, you know, they can do. But I said, I don't see the point, because I said, would you open your heart to me if you know I've got someone back in Australia? She goes, well, no. I said, so let's just do the right thing by each other from day one. I said, I'll be honest with you, you be honest with me. You know, if at any point you're not happy with things, just let me know. Let's not play any games with each other. I said, let's just live a clean life, clean relationship from day one. Take each other seriously. You tell me what you need. I'll do my best to keep you happy, and you give me the same back. Let's just do the right thing by each other. And it's been good, because we're different in many ways and very similar, but we keep our word to each other. And it's been really nice, you know, just keeping our word to each other and just not playing games and cleaning up our act. And even saying, you know, to James and Edward the other week, I said, we've got to get back to doing a lot more free webinars to help clients, you know, and really giving to help people right now, what's going on, you know. So you can all do that. Like, really, one of the best ways to deal with your own problems and fears is get out and help someone else who's in fear, you know, and get back to the basics, you know. So yeah, cleaning up our act.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, and a bit of integrity and, you know, and moral compass. Get back to the good values that all this stuff is trying to take away from us, because at the end of the day, it's like you can have your own great reset, right? You can reset your life in every area. You can hang out with the people you want to hang out with. So yeah, it's really, really important to have your own great reset. And that's not something we can do.
Oh, look, I mean, your lack of integrity, was just like, it was extraordinary, you know. I mean, the whole coercion thing that we've seen going on, it just absolutely, I just watched astonishment. I think one of the things that I'll also encourage people very, very much, you know, when it comes to this, that I would really encourage people is, I think as well as kind of doing the right thing by people, is actually people who are bastards, giving them what they deserve. I think that I made myself a rule that, you know, in the whole pandemic, I was helping people on like crazy. And I know that many, you know, have sent me loving messages about that, but also made a promise to myself that people who were going to try and coerce me or my friends, I was going to attack. I was not going to sit there and put up with it. And so I trained myself to troll, as you know, online. I became a good troll, and many of my friends who were getting bullied on the vaccine would get me in, and I'd attack. I would just kind of say, you're trying to tell me, you remember saying once to one person, saying, you're trying to tell me what, you want to force something into my body, which I don't want? I said, oh, yeah. I said, why don't you just force something up my ass while you're about it? I'd say that to people. And they go,
Yeah,
oh,
true,
no, I'll
though.
just say, no. I said, you will not sit here and justify to me that you're going to coerce me by gaslighting to put something into my body that I don't want without informed choice. Don't you dare do that. I said, you despicable. I said, so that would make you a very despicable person. So don't go there with me. I dare you not to go there. And they would straight away go, oh, no, look, I'm not saying that. And I'm saying, don't go there. So, yeah, I think we need to do more of that. I think we've got to get some moral compass and some balls, or in the case of women, some pussy. And the pussy's stronger than the balls. We all know that. So.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah, I love it. You know, I think this is getting back to what everyone was so, worried about when everything was happening. They're like, how do I get through this? Well, look, we're on the other side if you want to look at it now. But it's really about yourself, your integrity, having confidence in what you believe, having your truth, your source of truth, living to your morals and to your standards, and being kind to one another. Because, even going out there in society these days, you notice when you smile at someone, they genuinely look shocked. Have you noticed that, Warren? Do you ever do that?
Absolutely.
Like, I make it a thing to go to smile, and, and then people are like, and they're just a bit shocked. And you're like, oh my gosh, we really got a lot of work to do. So anyways, hey, someone else has just put into the comment here. Yeah, there we go. You can email support@globalwealthclub.com. Otherwise, just give your details directly to Warren if you're interested in this financial mentorship program. Guys, it's not like a sell that we're trying to do. It's honestly so important. We have so much, webinars are free that we want to really make people know that.
Yeah, so just to give a transparent thing about that mentoring, just so everyone knows what it is. One of the things that's happening is that one of the things that a lot of clients from feedback, because we're always doing surveys to get feedback. And funnily enough, just from my pole dancing, I got this kind of realization, because one of the things that impressed me was I never thought it was possible that someone like me could do it. But what they did in the studio, they got this very good breakup of beginners, intermediate, and advanced, and the way they broke it up, I thought, wow, I could eventually do this, because it starts off and builds up. And I realized the one missing link from what clients were saying is we didn't really have a good beginners financial mentoring program to get people started. We were very good for people who already had money. So I just said, look, we've got to do one. And I said to the team, I'm the best person to do this, and I want to find out what people need. So it's going to be a pilot project for 3 months where really I'm going to be running it. It's going to be a bit raw because we've used it before with kids, but there's probably going to be, I'll be seeking feedback. We'll be giving one-on-one sessions with everyone who's part of the program, and I'm keeping the numbers very limited. I've decided to limit it to a maximum of 8 people because there's going to be some one-on-one time with me on this one. And the reason I'm doing that is because I actually, as well as helping people, I want to actually get feedback and get blunt, direct feedback, like what's good about it, where we can improve it. Because then next year, we're going to formally incorporate a beginner's financial mentoring into the Global Wealth Club. My plan is that Connor and my son Edward and others will run it. I won't really be involved in the beginners. I'll be more involved in the intermediate and advanced. So that's why I'm truly going to be the beginners. Apart from maybe being on some of the recordings in the future, I'm going to be, this is the only time I'm going to be is involved to the level that I'm going to be involved in this particular one. And that's purely because it benefits me, because I want to be able to work with everyone and find out what people really need to get this program right so we can really help people. So that's the honest, transparent background behind the whole thing, why we're doing that and why we're going to give people a good deal, because there is going to be some teething problems in the first 3 months. We are going to reward people who do that, but they can then also do it again once it's more fixed up for the next round, when I'm not doing it if they want to. But yeah, so these 3 months will probably be a little bit raw as we're getting it right. That's the main reason. We're going to kind of do it this way.
Yeah, awesome. So the fact that you're only taking that amount of people better get onto it quick, because we're going to get there very quickly. We've already got people.
We're already halfway there, yeah.
Exactly. Okay, beautiful. All right. Well, are there any more questions that anyone has here tonight for Warren? So we can kind of discuss that. Otherwise, we'll probably start to wrap up. Is there anything else that you won't really want to particularly mention, Warren, otherwise?
Not really, no.
No. All right. Well, I've got Peter's email, so we'll be in touch. If there's anyone who does want to know more, you can email support@globalwealthclub.com, and go ahead, Warren.
I'll probably make one more comment. Yeah, look, the main thing the reason that we wanted to get going is just to encourage, inspire people.
Yes.
Look, the main thing with we're going to be doing more of this because, look, the biggest thing that people need, we all need is community support. Like I've needed so much support myself. Like after my partner died, look, I'll openly tell everyone. I mean, that was just, it's so diabolical. I can't even know where to start. I got on with life, but I was getting incredible support behind the scenes. I wouldn't have got through it, but for people like Jasmine, who was a really great support, who I could ring and just kind of offload. My sons were amazing. Grace, my former wife and business partner and director here, she was amazing. She literally, for the first 3 weeks, just stood by my side and didn't leave me until she knew I was okay. I had amazing psychologists, who just helped me. And I've had a couple of counselors who've just been available for me. I've just constantly had regular sessions with them, and even as recently as a month ago, I just was in Thailand. I just burst into tears. I just started crying because I realized how much, I just felt my life had been lost after that, because I had this map of my life that was burnt up and just set on fire and gone. And so I'm now in a place where, because I've been able to face stuff and have really good support and community, I'm actually in a pretty good place right now, because I've just decided to deal with stuff. And yeah, I think that right now we really need a good support community network. And it's like Louise says about a GWC forum, and I think it's a great idea that we could take on board, a good forum network to support each other. I remember when the lockdowns were happening at their worst, we actually had that at one stage, Louise, where people would come on, and members, we'd have regular Zooms, people would come on to their wines, and I'd bring on my kombucha and we'd just have a chat. And, we just basically built a good support, and one of the things I find that, like my new, like I said, girlfriend I've been seeing, like what she said to me was, like in Russia, she said she's got 2 friends who are both as neurotic as her. So they just do group therapy all the time. They sit there and they talk about their neurosis and fears and everything. And overall, because of that, she's quite a well-balanced girl. And I think that can work really well when we do that, and have a good support. So we do these webinars for there to be the support. And yeah, I know Grace is keen to build a business network as well, which she and I are talking about, so just, yeah, look, we're going to be, stay tuned, because people are going to need that support in the coming days. And we want to be able to really do that, and provide it in a way where people can really be supportive, have a community, not something you got to pay for, and if you do, what you will pay for is when there's stuff that's, like financial mentoring or personal benefit, then of course. But my vision's always been that the bulk of what we do here will be free and giving back to the world. That's like Google and Facebook. So
yeah, absolutely. So precious. So good. All right, everyone, stay tuned. We will be back next week. And if there's any other further questions, just reach out to us, Facebook. If you don't follow us on YouTube, we always repost everything on YouTube as well. And you can always reach out to us however you need to, but we'll see you here next time. All right. Thanks, awesome. Warren, for your time once again. Everyone, have a lovely, blessed night. We'll see you soon. Ciao.
To kick the habit that my mind is breathing.